I need to talk about this book, Chasing Evil. First, I need a fangirl moment. And after I talk about the book a little bit, I'm probably going to discuss a little bit about like mediumship integrity, etc. First, though, fangirl moment when my husband and I were dating into engaged and maybe I think even newly married. We were kind of like obsessively watching Crossing Over. And anybody who's not familiar, John Edward is a very well known, kind of world renowned psychic medium. And when he was still quite young, actually, he had a TV show called Crossing Over. It was on like TBS, TNT, USA, one of those channels. I don't remember anymore at this point, but I know it was regularly on there. And of course, those were before the TiVo and streaming days. So we were very, very intrigued by it. It was the kind of thing that we would regularly have conversation like, wouldn't it be the most amazing thing ever to have that ability and to deliver that kind of a gift to somebody who's grieving? And the specificity with which John Edward was always able to receive information, literally to the point of almost like arguing with people in the crowd when necessary, when they would say, well, no, maybe this, or no, that doesn't make sense. He'd be like, no, this is right. You're just not remembering yet. And sure enough, he ended up being right every single time. And while he has, that kind of confidence in his ability, the way that he delivers messages is just, and that's part of the integrity that I want to talk about after I talk about the book a little bit. This book, I did listen on audio through Audible. It's so fascinating. Like I almost want to just start the whole damn thing over again. Because, starting with an FBI agent who's, absolute straight and narrow, totally thinks all of this is just the biggest load of nonsense BS. And listening to him discuss how he transformed into a true believer that this type of work is in fact real and totally possible, and possible for anybody who decides that they want to follow that and learn how to develop that, at least to some degree or another. The ability for non-believers to then become believers, to, have their own experiences. It's just, and then couple that with the way, John Edward was able to really get very, very deep, specific details, not only to confirm things that they already knew so that he could show, obviously, I have no access to this information. I don't have classified top secret access or whatever it is. And then be able to not only prove that, but give additional information for them to use moving forward. It kind of, and I love true crime anyway, and my husband does too, that, being able to put that together and help solve really, really important cases and probably save additional lives. It's just absolutely fascinating. It's, if there's anything that about true crime that you like, even if you think that psychic mediumship is total nonsense, I think you'll find this a really, really interesting book. If you're like me and you enjoy both of those things and kind of like watch a lot of Forensic Files and Dateline and things like that, documentaries on Netflix and whatever, and you are have an affinity for the spiritual content, I really, really, really recommend this book. It's really an interesting read/listen for me. Back to the discussion about integrity. He has, since I started to recognize that I did in fact have the capability to do this kind of work, he has remained a huge measure for me in the way that he works. I have seen very, very large platforms on this app and others, psychic mediums who I do believe have true abilities, who are not, who are not scammers in the sense that they are fakes, that they don't work with spirit, but who deliver messages in a way that for me, if I were the loved one receiving that kind of reading, where they even dive into like deep personal gory details, like about the way someone has passed, the amount of blood that they can see, really kind of deeply inconsiderate details about, someone having taken their own lives. Just, I think that you can really deliver this same confirmation and validation while also taking into consideration what it's like to receive that kind of information as the grieving loved one. And watching mediums who really deliver the message with kind of gross, disturbing, gory details, traumatic details, and sometimes that, say that there's a circumstance where police are called in and maybe they're the ones who deliver the information to the loved one. The loved one doesn't even know until a policeman shows up on their doorstep. And then they're traumatized anyway for receiving upsetting, difficult, painful news of a loved one having passed. And then you as a medium are sitting there talking about the gory details about what the crime scene looked like and just why. To me, that comes off as let me flex what my abilities are rather than let me bring you confirmation that your loved one is okay, that their love for you remains even in the afterlife, even having crossed over, even having passed on, even in whatever realm they are now in. The validation doesn't have to include things that can be re-traumatizing to family members and loved ones who are left behind and are grieving and are trying desperately to heal. And you're picking at that scab with details that really don't need to be shared in that way. That's well and good if you see a bloody, nasty, horrific crime scene. But what good does that do for the person that you're reading for to be re-traumatized with those details? It doesn't need to be I've seen mediums say, well, if spirit's showing me, then I know it's information that must be shared. You still have discernment in the type of language and the type of energy that you hold while you present things. There's a difference between saying this much blood, that type of tissue damage, that type of, this is what it looks like, versus saying, I'm being shown a scene that looks deeply traumatizing, and I'm so sorry that this is the way your loved one crossed. However, I want to let you know that they didn't experience every bit of this, because I've never had a reading personally where the crossed loved one has been like, I felt every one of those wounds, or I had searing pain. When, they're almost always actually describing either that they didn't experience that or that their soul had actually begun separation from their body before the physical trauma to that nature happened. Every single time. That's the way it's been described to me and shown to me and provided to me. So I just think that you can maybe sit with your own discernment when you're watching mediums on this platform or otherwise who get into the dirty, nitty-gritty, nasty, re-traumatizing details with their sitter that probably don't need to be described in such a way. Because if we're giving the gift of knowing that their loved ones have crossed over and are safe and are okay and do not now feel pain, why are we giving re-traumatizing details to those people instead of that gift? Just my 2 cents. If you stuck around this long, thank you. Please go check out this book if there's anything of interest in these topics for you. I do not think that you'll be disappointed at all.